Hello my quilting friends, my name is Leah Day and today I have another oldie goldie heart tutorial. We are learning English Ivy and this starts with a little bit of wiggly stippling and then I'm going to stitch a little straight line, about 1/2 inch long when I'm stitching on the scale, and then now I'm going to swirl into a heart shape. And you can make this as fun and interesting as you want. You can try and make the hearts, the shapes, the globes of it even. I kind of just aim for that and I do my best and then I pivot off that point and echo around it. This is great practice for pivoting and echoing. And now I'm going to swirl back into my stippling, just a little bit of wiggly line here, just to give a little bit of space and to move on with the design before I stitch another English Ivy shape. So here again, I'm going to stitch a straight line. That kind of gives me a little tail to go into the top of that heart shape. I'm going to stitch a very small heart this time. And swirl around. And now pivot and echo around it. And I want to continue to keep that nice spacing, so about 1/8 inch away when I'm stitching it on this scale. All right, from there, I'm just going to wiggle off with more stippling, and that is how this design works. Now that we've stitched it on a small scale in a small little square, let's give this a try on a bigger scale on a much bigger machine. Now let's try English Ivy on my long arm. This is the Unique 21X Elite. I'm doing that little bit of stippling, straight line, and now I'm going to swirl into my heart shape. And it's a little asymmetrical, but that's okay. I'm going to bring that down. What I love about this design is that, yes, I have those points to hit, but really there's no travel stitching in this design. That's going to make it much easier for long arm quilting. And then it's also great practice for stippling. I always need more practice for this design. It's just such a useful, awesome design for so many things. So swirl into another heart shape, pivot, echo around it. This is also great practice for heart paisley. Now, what happens when something like this happens where, you kind of swirl in, don't really have enough space to get out? What do? Well, I kind of want to fill in this little area right behind the foot. You can't see it, but there's like a little open patch, and then I think I'm just going to have to just wiggle my way through that area and just make it make sense. Maybe even bring the line a little closer to the heart. I think that worked. It's one of those things where picking out a seam ripper and ripping it just wastes time. You got to just keep on going with it and figure out how you can make it look okay to keep on going. Now, what happens if you stitch a heart and it's just too big to go around with an echo? Well, you can always do an internal echo. So you pretend like that's the outer heart and then you stitch an inner heart inside of it. And that might actually be easier to stitch in general, is to start with the outer shape and then do an inner shape. It's totally up to you. I hope that you can see that there's absolutely no right or wrong way of stitching this. I actually had to shift my long arm a little bit. I was reaching the bottom edge, and so I rolled it up just a little bit so that way I could reach this area. That's looking pretty good. I had a little bit of a wobble when my machine hit the bottom rail or bottomed out. There we go. You always gotta keep an eye on, where you're at in your quilt. And when you're on a frame, you have a lot more space to play, but you still have some limits to your quilting space. In this case, you have vertical limits of how much area you can quilt at any given time. You'll notice I have a line through that area. That's my basting. I do this a lot now. I baste the quilt on the frame, just kind of getting the layers nicely locked together. And especially if I have a quilt where I'm having to take it on and off, and this quilt has been taken on and off the frame at least 6 times, it just saves time putting the quilt back on. It minimizes distortion, and it also just makes for easier quilting, especially with pantos or designs like QCT, anything like that. So it's something that I do a lot now. I just run some lines of basting stitches as the quilt is layered, and it just saves me time if I ever have to take it off the frame, unload it, and then reload it. So there's a few tips about a lot of different quilting styles. I hope that you have enjoyed learning how to quilt English Ivy with me today. As you can see, this is a fun, versatile design. You can definitely do a lot with it. There is absolutely no limit to what you can do with stippling mixed with heart shapes. For more free motion quilting videos, plus tools, supplies, long arms, frames, and more, come and check out my website, leahday.com. Until next time, let's go quilt.